Moin, ihr wunderbare Menschen des Interwebs. Ich begrüße euch ganz herzlich zurück zu meinem Let's Play von The Great Ace-Attorney Chronicles. Wir sind hier stehen geblieben bei der Aussage von Mr. Lunes Balloons und wir werden uns jetzt einmal anhören, was der gute Mann zu sagen hat. Übrigens, der kleine Junge, der Name, den ich jetzt schon wieder vergessen habe, Wilhelm Gottreich Sigismund schieß mich tot, ist auf jeden Fall tatsächlich eine Figur aus den Sherlock Holmes Romanen. Nur nicht als kleines Kind repräsentiert, aber das ist auch eine Figur aus dem Sherlock Holmes Universum. As I said, Balzahar Lune is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely. All three of my balloons were carrying passengers. If they fell to the ground in an explosion, what a catastrophe! But you can't get away from the fact that the burned up bit of cloth was found at the scene, can you? The coppers at the yard reckoned it was probably some debris thrown from the explosion on the stage. This stupid ragazzo is mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway. Okay. So your assertion is that the balloon this child saw was not one belonging to you? Si, exactamente. If he even saw a balloon in the first place. I do not like the sound of it. It is very bad for business. I have a good mind to sue the land of Bohemia. If you attack us, we will fight back. It will be for all out for. What happened to all out war? Mr. Lune certainly doesn't appear to be lying, but that doesn't change the fact that the testimony and evidence are contradictory here. If the defense is unable to find fault with the witnesses' statements, the court must consider them the truth. Think long and hard on that, my learned friend. The situation has clearly changed now. I have to get to the bottom of what happened here, no matter what it takes. Counsel, you may now cross-examine the witnesses. Es gibt eine Sache, die ich gerne fragen wollen würde. Als allererstes, und zwar seine Ballons, also seine Heißluftballons, die sollen die blauen sein mit einem Zickzackmuster drauf. Wo war das denn? You can't get away from the fact. The compass at the yard reckoned it was probably some... Okay. Okay, yeah, da. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway. So, da möchte ich jetzt gerne einmal mehr darüber erfahren. You mean the color is wrong? Si, senor. I do not have any green balloons in my warehouse. And yet, a piece of green cloth was found at the scene, and it's unmistakably from a balloon. Well, I do not know how that can be. For the sake of argument, let's say that a green balloon that exploded above the stage. You couldn't therefore conclude that it happened on the day in question. Why not? There have been recreational balloon flights over Hyde Park operating from before the Great Exhibition. One could have exploded on some earlier date, unfortunate as I'm sure you would agree. You believe it may have been from some earlier balloon accident that redates the exhibition? Aber dann hätte man dieses Stück von dem Ballon, das hätte man doch dann längst gefunden, oder nicht? Das würde doch dann nicht den ganzen Tag rumliegen. Si, exactamente. As the senor says, it is not from one of my balloons. Clearly this little ragazzo from Bohemia is mistaken about what he saw. Is something wrong, Master Gotts? It's Master Wilhelm Gottreich Sigismund Ormstein. It was on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, something is very wrong. I know what I saw. there was a green balloon there. I swear it. I swear all over Bohemia. You can speak as much bad language as you like, but it changes nothing. If you do not have evidence, ragazzo, then I must tell your parents to punish you, eh? Perhaps we will let the judge decide when it comes to punishments. Evidence? What is this evidence? To give a simple example, young man. A photograph, for instance. Some tangible proof of what you claim. Well, didn't you say... Why didn't you say so sooner? I have the photograph here. Good gracious. What? I had not been up in a balloon for a little while, so I was very excited. I took lots and lots of photographs of the Crystal Tower, of the Bohemian exhibit, of the streets of London, of the hot ale cellar sea balloon. And the instantaneous kinesis experiment. Did you take a picture of that? Yeah, fun picture. Really? You did take one? But all I wanted was a ride in a balloon. I was not interested in boring experiments. Ich glaube, ich mache das nicht so richtig gut mit dem deutschen Akzent. Eigentlich müsste ich das besser hinkriegen. Never mind that. Can you show us that photograph? Of course, and then you will see. You will see that I'm not lying. That I really did see a green balloon. Well, I see you are all too shocked to speak. Yes, I think shocked is indeed the word, young man. Yeah, perhaps you cannot see that it was a green balloon from this photograph, but that is not my fault. That is the fault of the stupid person who made the camera. That is one very Bohemian sounding cry. Ich finde es auch gut, dass sie jetzt das mit eingefügt haben. Very well, the court will accept this photograph as evidence. Das ist eigentlich ein sehr schönes kleines Detail. It's not my fault, it's the fault of the person who made the camera. Well, never mind. I'm sure you have plenty of wonderful sepia memories to take home with you. In any case, when exactly did you take that photograph? Well, it was on the day of the big explosion. You don't say. When I pressed the shutter release, there was this very loud bang, and a hot wind rushed over my face. That means this photograph was taken a split second before the explosion occurred. Well, if you ask me, this black and white photograph changes nothing. I could not give the flying... Lovely language you've picked up. As I thought, Mr. Lune's testimony just doesn't quite add up. The young Bohemian boy claims to have seen another fourth balloon, but Mr. Lune vehemently denies the possibility, and it's hard to imagine the man in charge could be mistaken about the number that were in the air. Still, this inconsistency must tell us something, I'm sure. Okay, wir haben doch jetzt das Foto bekommen, ne? Okay, so. Lasst uns das mal angucken. Also das ist erstmal, ist das ein Ballon, der also leer ist. Es sind keine Passagiere drin. Das ist das Erste, was mir auffällt. Das Zweite, was mir auffällt, ist, dass da irgendein Projektil gerade dabei ist, diesen Ballon zu treffen. Und hier fängt es jetzt an, dass sich der Rauch bildet. Das Opfer ist auf dem Foto noch zu sehen. Und Mr. Hairbrain auch. Okay. Jetzt frage ich mich, ob das der Armbrustbolzen ist. Ja, einer von den Pfeilen von der Armbrust, dieses Projektil. Weil wir konnten jetzt immer noch nicht die Armbrust vorzeigen. Die muss ja auch noch irgendwie da in Verbindung stehen. All 3 of my balloons were carrying passengers. If they fell to the ground in an explosion, what a Katastrophe. Ich würde hier jetzt gerne einmal das Foto vorzeigen, weil auf diesem Foto sind keine Passagiere zu sehen. Und dadurch, dass es jetzt ein Schwarz-Weiß-Foto ist, kann ich eben nicht wirklich sagen, ob das jetzt ein grüner Ballon ist oder ein blauer Ballon. Sehe ich halt jetzt leider nicht. Unfortunately, the photograph Master Gods took can't tell us the color of the balloon. But it can tell us something else, something crucially important. It shows that the pictured balloon wasn't carrying any passengers. My goodness, you're right. But surely all the balloons would have been carrying passengers. There would be no sense in it otherwise. See, they are for pleasure, for seeing the view. My balloons only fly with passengers. Which tells us that the pictured balloon isn't one of them. So when the incident occurred that day, there was a 4th balloon in the skies above the experimentation stage. The mysterious green balloon. I know nothing, niente. I can only tell you one thing. If this balloon was not carrying passengers, then it was not none of mine. Ich finde ja den Eisluftballonhut auch ganz klasse. There are illegal tradesmen everywhere you care to look. Clearly, one such entrepreneur decided to capitalize on the opportunity presented by the Great Exhibition and managed to operate balloon flights on Mr. Lune's patch without him realizing. See, the competizione trying to steal my profits. I did not notice because of the esperimento that went wrong on the stage. This 4th balloon exploded at the very same moment Mr. Esmond was beamed from the stage below. Right, so them scraps that fell to the ground after and left them scorch marks. They didn't come from the stage at all. It was beats of the balloon raining down. But cause no one was in it, it didn't get no attention. A mysterious 4th balloon carrying no passengers silently floating over the experimentation stage. This photograph shows us nothing more. A stray balloon carrying no one and operated by some rogue trader. Clearly it has nothing to do with the case. Its relevance does elude me, I must say. The court has seen sufficient evidence and heard ample testimony already. The prosecution calls for this trial to be concluded. Really? Have we really got to the truth yet? No, I can't let this opportunity slip away. The jurors' minds are made up, and not in our favor. What else can this photograph tell us? Is there nothing more we can learn from it? There is more. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, wait. Please don't give your decisions yet. The photograph from Master Gods may well be hiding one more vital clue. We are well past the point of mere possibilities. It's time for definitives now, so tell the court. What exactly does this alleged clue in the photograph prove? The balloon's owner, the balloon's color, the cause of the explosion. We can reasonably assume that the pictured balloon was destroyed in the searing heat of the explosion. Yeah, that's right, yeah, it was not my fault. Evidently, because the birdcage from the kinesis machine materialized in the sky where it had been flying. And the balloon, being filled with flammable hydrogen, instantly and explosively ignited. No, that's not what happened. It would appear that this photograph requires closer examination. Counsel for the defense, you will highlight the location of this alleged clue in the photograph for the court. Of course, my lord. If you look closely, it's plain enough to see, and what's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have, in a way that leads to an unbelievable conclusion. The clue that heavily suggests the real reason the balloon exploded is dieser light beam here. The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. you look, you will notice there's a bright white line that appears to point directly at the balloon. Most likely a ray of light caught incidentally on the film. I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort. If you look with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear what the nature of this bright line really is. Goodness, what is that? Undeniable, some flash of light, yes. Oh golly, do you think it might be lightning? But it couldn't have been a finer day. I believe we may be looking at fire. A bolt of fire heading straight for the balloon, like an arrow? Indeed, even to my aging eyes, it would appear to be a flame of some sort. My word, or are you suggesting this flame struck the hydrogen gas that filled the balloon? That's absurd. The balloon would have been 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly have reached such a height. Actually, it's my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how that is exactly what did happen. If such evidence exists, counsel, then for goodness sake, present it, man. Which evidence explains this mysterious streak of flame that appears to be headed directly for the balloon? Das ist die Armbrust. This was found hidden at the foot of a small ornamental tree near the scene. Jetzt habe ich auch schon Probleme mit that and this. Das fängt ich auch schon an. Good lord, is that a crossbow? An arrow dipped in oil and satellite could have been shot from this weapon, sending a flaming arrow straight into the hydrogen-filled balloon. Are you suggesting that crossbow was used to deliberately... Blimley, you're right. That streak of light in the photo looks just like an arrow, doesn't it? Then, the explosion of the balloon, it was... very likely the result of a flaming arrow from this crossbow igniting the hydrogen gas inside it. Counsel, this is an extraordinary supposition. If the aim was to cause the balloon to explode, the shooter could have used a gun, of course. However, there is an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question. The noise of the discharge, of course. That's right. By using a crossbow, the projectile could be fired at the balloon silently. Well, yeah, if someone had shot a gun off in the exhibition grounds, it would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion, there was a very big panic anyway, no? I don't like this. I should be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation for all this, but something feels wrong. Do you understand the implications of what you are saying, my Nipponese friend? If a flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously it would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensued... Wait a minute, what are you really saying here? I don't get it. Was the birdcage beamed up into the sky after all, or... what? My goodness me. Ah, now I understand. That's what that sinking feeling is about. I think there is a good chance that the birdcage was actually concealed inside the balloon all along. What? Did I just hear that correctly, counsel? There's no going back now. The horse has bolted. But wait, what? Let's assume, as I said, that the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the start. On stage, when the experiment was started, the birdcage in the instantaneous kinesis machine disappeared in a cloud of smoke. At that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the spectators to the sky above their heads. From amid the smoke, the hidden birdcage then appeared to fall down and crash into the crystal tower. I think you will all agree it's entirely plausible. Okay, das stimmt, das ist plausibel und das wäre eben, ich sag jetzt mal, ein standardmäßiger Zaubertrick. Aber Das würde ja bedeuten, dass unser Opfer vorher bereits umgebracht wurde, dort platziert wurde, aber wer ist denn dann in die Maschine gestiegen? Das kann ja doch dann nur ein Doppelgänger gewesen sein, oder? Anders funktioniert das doch nicht. That what I've just described is the real truth behind the miraculous experiment carried out that day. This is ludicrous. What you've described is no science experiment. It's child's play. A condemnable display of stage magic. Both Mr. Sholmes and Iris said that the experiment was a scientific impossibility, in which case, this is the only way to explain what happened that day. And in any case, the victim's body was found inside the birdcage in the Crystal Tower. If the instantaneous kinesis didn't take place, how do you explain that? If I may put in a word as a man of magic myself, such apparent discrepancies can easily be explained by some simple deception. Juror number 3. All that would be needed is a doppelganger, someone who looked very similar to the victim, Mr. Asman. Ich finde schön, dass Doppelgänger hier Deutsch geschrieben wurde, aber eigentlich wird Doppelgänger mit AE geschrieben im Englischen. Weil, also Ö und Ü ist ja mehr so ein Ding von uns, was wir benutzen. And having this other man appear on stage to front the show as a body double. Okay, ja. Also es kann wirklich nur dann so sein, dass es ein Doppelgänger war. Of course, so in fact, Mr. Asman must have been inside the birdcage that was concealed inside the balloon right from the start. That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Anything hidden inside it would have been scattered to the four winds when it exploded. No one would ever have embarked on such a risky venture. Not necessarily. The explosive force of the balloon gas would very much depend upon the mixture ratio. Juror number 4. Flying balloons are rawly filled with pure hydrogen, but a mixture of other gases such as helium as well. Helium on its own doesn't explode, but by controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered. The mixture ratio? Obviously, the victim's body would have suffered some burns that would be unavoidable. But not to such an extent as to render this whole obscene charade impossible. So, everything that happened can be explained, logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all part of an elaborate deception to make it appear that instantaneous kinesis had occurred. Well, goodness me. And if we accept that this is what happened, it means that the victim, Mr. Asman, was never present on the public experimentation stage to begin with. In short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant who was on stage in full view the entire time. This will be very hard for the prosecution to counter. Lord von Zieks can credibly maintain that Professor Hairbrain is a suspect now. Ich habe eine ganz schlimme Befürchtung, wer jetzt hier gerade sprechen. Ja. Warum musst du immer gegen uns arbeiten? Mr. Naruhodo, I appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Professor? But you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please. Sorry? What's all this about, Mr. Hairbrain? I, Albert Hairbrain, hereby confess that it was me who stabbed Mr. Ori Asman. Yes, it was me, with my faithful friend and partner, Andrew the Screwdriver. Warum? Oh. Also, oh mein Gott, er lässt sich lieber schuldig sprechen, anstatt einfach zu gestehen, dass sein Experiment nicht funktionieren kann. Ah. Defendant, explain the sudden confession. Professor Hairbrain, what are you talking about? It's what I've said all along. I must protect my hypothesis and my precious machine. You stand there and claim it was all a trick? All an elaborate prank? But where's your proof? No, you would have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it would all be over. My beautiful hypothesis would be laid bare. I mean, the indignity of it. It's clear that you drew the plans for the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. It's quite conceivable that you were dubbed Professor Baroque. I will cooperate. I will do whatever you say. I swear it. So please, ensure the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act is adhered to and protect my creation. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hollow chilies at this critical juncture. Here's to my learned Nipponese friend. Würdest du jetzt auch einmal bitte davon trinken und das nicht wieder wegschmeißen? And his upcoming attempt to clarify the defense position in the light of the accused's confession. Do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick? Because the moment you do, the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act that protects the professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will then demand a rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. However, if you acknowledge that the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder, any chance of investigating will be crushed, and the confidentiality of the professor's hypothesis preserved. Well, counsel, what is the defense official position on this matter? What Professor Harebrained, my client, actually asked of me was to prove that the explosion on stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of his hypothesis, but there's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by asserting his innocence, or do I uphold my client's request but see him condemned? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silent long enough. You have been silent long enough. Isn't talking your trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused Nipponese mind? Mr. Naruhodo. There's no escape here. I have to make a choice. But it's an impossible one. I have to give up on something. But what? The defense asserts that the defendant's instantaneous kinesis machine was in fact a trick. No, I can't say it. My client placed his faith in me. I can't just let him down. What must I give up on? It's not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's, what can I protect? Hello again, Mr. Naruhodo. It's been far too long. Susato-san? But what are you... My first Susato takedown in 6 months. There will be time to talk later, Mr. Naruhodo. For now, we must concentrate on the task at hand. Which is working out not what I have to give up on, but what I can protect. Professor Harebrained. Yesterday, you told me that science is the pursuit of truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth too. And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asman. I think you've come to realize something yourself too, haven't you? That your experiment and the machine you build with the victim are questionable. The truth behind that is what we must both pursue now. So, you finally opened your eyes. And as for you, Albert, you can't ignore this any longer. Having heard my learned friend's assertion Don't you have something to say? Lord von Zieks. Gosh, I've never heard him speak that way before. In truth, there is one thing, something I've remembered that's of relevance. On the day it happened, just before I began the experiment, I saw a man near the stage. A man holding that crossbow. I beg your pardon? Professor, did the man have any distinguished features? What did he look like? Taller than me, and thinner than me, with straight hair, straighter and wider than mine. Let me see, one less lens than me too, a monocle, a rather stylish black monocle. But one thing in particular will help to positively identify the man, you see, I know him very well. After all, he's the engineer who built my invention. He built the machine? That's right, Mr. Esmond introduced him to me a year ago. He's a man by the name of Enoch Drebber. Does his name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered. Not a name any scientist wishes to hear. The man's an abomination. Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear either. Who on earth is he? I'm afraid this isn't the first tale of this nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of other flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but stage trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal is after the government's research grant money. When magicians are in need of money, I have heard of them resorting to these underhand tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things have mentioned Enoch Drebber's name before. The man is both an engineer and a magician. Yes, we are dealing with an unparalleled confidence trickster here. That's Enoch Drebber for you. So it's true that my invention, my great machine, it was just a grand illusion? Considering what we've just heard about Mr. Drebber's character, I'm sorry to say that sounds increasingly likely. Even though no one else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe that machine would function exactly as my hypothesis predicted. Which is why you were so opposed to it being investigated, I presume. I knew that if the machine was examined in detail, its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen, but at the same time, I knew that if it was found to be nothing more than a trick, than a work of deception, then everything I had worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, my whole life would be over. I was terrified at the prospect. So you really had no idea then, did you? About the true nature of the machine that was built, and the true nature of Mr. Drebber? I never questioned anything. I didn't want to question it. It's entirely possible that Mr. Esmond and Mr. Drebber were working together to use you as a means of fraudulently acquiring the research grant money. When I announced my invention to the crowds today, it was the finest moment of my career. I pulled all the levers and turned all the dials in exactly the way Drebber had described. When the smoke suddenly started billowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. But I really don't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore. Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. Do you now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. Yes, please go ahead. I am very sorry. It would appear that we shall have to suspend proceedings for the remainder of the day now. Lord von Zieks. My lord. The court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical. Yes, Mr. Draber. Gather information about the man. If possible, I should like him served with a subpoena. Das klang jetzt irgendwie sehr italienisch. With pleasure, my lord. Now, counsel for the defense. Yes, my lord. When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing and one thing alone from you. Evidence that the defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused. I understand. Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. Ich finde es ja sehr schön, dass Susato wieder da ist. Mr. Naruhodo, yes? I am so sorry. I was wrong. You were right. I tricked you. You trusted me. I dragged you into my mess. Oh, how did it ever come to this? Ich fange jetzt auch schon an, this zu sagen. I'm so sorry. Did you really have no idea, Professor? About what Mr. Draber was really up to, I mean. About what he was really constructing? Naturally. That machine was the embodiment of my hypothesis, of all my hopes and dreams. I had complete faith in it. Alright, in that case, I won't say any more. Now, sadly, the murder accusation against you still stands, so we must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow. Well, thank you for doing so much for me. I am so sorry for arriving late this morning, Mr. Naruhodo. Arriving late? Didn't you receive my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I would arrive. Postcard? What postcard? I hid it from you, Runo, so it would be a surprise. Well, did it work? I was surprised, alright, especially when she threw me to the ground. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again that it sort of slipped out. Maybe we could stick to more traditional displays of emotion in future? Susie's train was late into London Victoria this morning, you see. But we made the coachman really whip the horses hard so she didn't miss the whole trial. I was watching from the gallery for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself. Well, I'm glad you didn't. Having you at my side in court gives me the strength I need to win. So, I am, delighted to see you, back in London. Oh, you're too kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm delighted to be here. I hope I can continue to be of service to you. Of course, so what's brought you back? Did Professor Mikotoba not protest? Let's save all the conversation for when we're back at home, shall we? You know, I've made one of my most special blends ever for this special occasion. Oh, Iris, how wonderful, I can't wait. Susato-san was back in London. It's hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time, but despite my elation, our tale was about to take yet another extraordinary turn. To be continued. Ja, ich bin unfassbar froh, Susato wieder da zu haben, dass wir wieder mit Susato gemeinsam Fälle aufklären können. Das hat mich sehr, sehr gefreut, dass sie doch wieder zurückgekommen ist nach London. Und ich bin jetzt mal sehr gespannt, wie der Fall weitergeht. Weil, okay, wir haben jetzt bestätigt, das war ein Zaubertrick. Und dass Mr. Asman ja vorher schon getötet wurde. Vermutlich zumindest. Das war jetzt noch nicht zu 100% bestätigt, aber es ist eine Möglichkeit. Auf der anderen Seite, ich muss mir den Autopsiebericht da nochmal genau angucken. Der Todeszeitpunkt. Es kann nämlich auch sein, dass der Todeszeitpunkt eben erst, ja, der Todeszeitpunkt war, glaube ich, später. Also ich glaube, man kann ihn nicht vorher umgebracht haben. Also sonst hätte der Todeszeitpunkt nicht mehr übereingestimmt. Also ist er entweder durch den Aufprall gestorben oder vielleicht hat der Armbrustbolzen ihn erschossen. Müssen wir nochmal gucken. Ich muss mir den Autopsiebericht nochmal ganz genau angucken, um da mehr drüber sagen zu können. Ich bin jetzt aber erstmal gespannt, wie das Ganze mit dem Fall weitergeht. Und wir werden mit unseren Ermittlungen im nächsten Part weitermachen. Ich bedanke mich ganz herzlich fürs Zusehen. Hoffe, ihr hattet Spaß. Und wenn ihr mögt, sehen wir uns sehr, sehr gerne im nächsten Part wieder. Bis dahin. Ciao.